Hi, welcome back to EdTech Insider. I'm Andrew Cohen, the founder of Brainscape, and I'm here with Paul Golish, the founder of Voxy, which helps you learn a language from life. How you doing, Paul?
Good, Andrew. Thanks so much for having me today.
It's good to have you here. So Voxy helps you learn a language from life using articles and using things like life skills training. How is that different from what's in the real world? There's already a real world of newspapers and reading material out there. Why is there a need for something like Voxy?
So the way that we look at Voxy is almost as if you were going to put a layer, an educational layer, on top of everything around you. So we want to convert real-world experiences, which right now are things like entertaining content that you read, things that you consume, things that you do as you go about your life. We want to actually convert those into language learning content.
So is this for independent adult learners, or is this something that you would actually use in a classroom as part of a curriculum?
We think that there's a potential for Voxy to be both an educational supplement to classroom learning, as well as a really good tool for an individual adult learner. We're predominantly focused on adults, so not necessarily the K through 12 market at this point, but as we grow, that could evolve as well.
So is there a team of journalists that develops these articles for you? Are you importing from different sources or letting the crowd kind of determine the content that's on your website?
So we do listen very closely to our users. We have about 19,000 users right now. So we do listen to the type of content that they're looking for. But right now, for what you're seeing today, which is very much our minimum viable product, we're actually creating the content ourselves. However, we have very, very clear plans in 2011 to start partnering with different publishers to begin converting other third-party content into, like I said, the educational programming that Voxy uses to help people learn the language.
Publishers like newspapers, publishers like educational publishers?
Yeah, so we did a very small sort of test syndication deal with a popular English language Latino-focused blog towards the end of this year, so in the fourth quarter of 2010. And we found that syndicating third-party content through our sort of Voxy Intelligent learning engine is really both beneficial to publishers and really benefits our users. They're getting to use or to learn from exactly the type of news that they'd be consuming anyway. So we're seeking to expand that sort of pilot program that we did, beyond and partner with larger publishers, like you said, newspapers, magazines, blogs. And then as we continue to evolve, we see the total body of content that could be consumable by a Voxy student to really be anything that they're interacting with. So you can even imagine a situation where your Facebook feed could be converted by Voxy into a language learning lesson.
Now, when I was checking out Voxy online, one of the things I noticed about the articles is they're really short, very digestible chunks of information. And if I'm taking something straight from the New York Times to help somebody learn Spanish, or taking something straight from univision.com and using it to help somebody learn English, those are often very large articles. So it's not always a straight import of the content. Yeah. You have to kind of massage it. How does that process work? And how can it be automated? It's
a great question, and I think a lot of that we'll do through curation. So most of these content providers have a massive body of content that they could potentially syndicate through Voxy, and we'll likely end up having to curate that and choose sort of the stuff that we consider bite-sized, which is 80 to call it 120 words, but something that's designed to be used in 3 minutes or less.
So using articles that are already in that format versus using large articles and then turning them into that format.
Well, there is a process of sheltering, which is actually making the content level appropriate, based on readability indexes, etc. So I think I could imagine that process being evolved to shorten some pieces, or maybe just give introductions. Maybe just the first couple of paragraphs of a particular article. But I think you bring up a great point that taking an entire 2,000-word New York Times or even 750-word New York Times article and trying to turn that into a language lesson, I don't think would ever be sort of what Voxy would seek to do. I think the path we might take there is to take a part of that, use it in sort of Voxy Engine, and then link back to the publisher site themselves.
Have you thought about crowdsourcing among educators? You know, if I'm a Spanish teacher and I come across some great articles myself, or even write them myself, and think that they would be perfect for Voxy, can I upload them? Can I submit them for you guys to check out, or is it exclusively with professional publishing relationships?
At this point, it's the latter. It's more professional publishers, but we are definitely looking to engage not only our sort of user base, but also the educational community in helping to create sort of the Voxy experience, and that does extend to content. But most of the sort of customized content that we envision would be in the life skills section. So as we develop separate tracks of life skills, we think those are imminently customizable, and we probably look to professors and instructors and even corporations to help to sort of guide that.
Can you give me an example of one or two life skills?
Oh yeah, good question. So our target market, our phase 1 market, is the U.S. Hispanic population to learn English. So the 3 life skills that we have live currently are immigration. And this was at the very specific request of our users. They were looking to learn the sort of, how to speak intelligently about things in the immigration process. So immigration is one of them. A second is banking and finance. So how to navigate the U.S. banking system, and where they can learn words like debit and credit and cash and savings account and interest rate and things like that. And a third is shopping, things that are, every day a U.S. Hispanic will have a number of interactions in English that are, ranging from problematic to sort of, anxiety producing, just based on their level of English. So we're hoping to offer those life skills in areas like shopping. Like, what do you say when you need to return something?
A lot of language e-learning, like Rosetta Stone, for example, teaches lessons from very beginning to intermediate to advanced in terms of the complexity of the vocabulary, the complexity of the grammar. With real-life news articles, it might be hard to do that. So how would somebody who's a pure beginner in a language versus somebody who's already pretty advanced and just wanting to polish themselves react differently or use Voxy differently based on their initial skill levels?
I think that's a great question. And if you look at the sort of continuum of learners, I know enough. I don't speak a single word of Mandarin, and I speak pretty decent English. If you look at that whole spectrum, what we're targeting initially are what's called false beginners. So people who actually do have a couple of the building blocks, and that's consistent with our target market, who know the very rudimentary English constructs, but don't have the confidence or the fluidity to truly be able to sort of navigate the world in that way. So rather than Rosetta Stone, which is a very linear model, and Rosetta Stone is a fine product, ours is much more about, it's much more sort of nonlinear and offers you the ability to learn about things that you want and that you're interacting with sort of at your pace. So things that you'll hear me say over and over again are personalization and customization, and then sort of mobility and ease of use, and those are 2 things that we think differentiate us from a product like Rosetta Stone. One last thing I'll say on that, and it's something that we continue to think about, is where to place yourself sort of in Voxy. I think there's no diagnostic, you'll notice. And that's something that we're continuing to test and evaluate.
Yeah, I see you have micro-diagnostics on each of the articles or each of the life skills, but sort of the global, where do I stand in terms of my Spanish development, might be something to be thinking about. But vocabulary, I see that you do have kind of a global vocab bank. That is actually one of the big metrics that you use, that you can check out your profile, see how many words that you've mastered that you have in your bank, that you're incrementally choosing to add to your bank from the stories that you read. And that kind of could be a differentiator between, if I'm a beginner, I might choose to add a lot of the vocab words from a story into my bank, versus if I'm intermediate or advanced, I might only add 1 or 2.
Yeah, that's a great point.
But then when you've added them to your bank, how do you treat vocabulary in terms of reviewing it and learning it and continuing to help it be personal and adaptive?
So right now, you add a word to your word bank, and we use the term word loosely. That's sort of any learning opportunity, whether it's an idiom or a grammatical construct. But you add that to your sort of personal curriculum. And then there's an opportunity through a set of collaborative and competitive games that we're building on top of Voxy, where you'll be able to sort of revisit and study, or we actually sometimes use the word relive, these learning moments. So the studying will come, sort of the repetitive-based studying that's needed to master a concept will come in the form of games that are always in context, so we'll always remind you of the contextual reason why you learned that concept, but it'll come in sort of a more game-like fashion.
Is there a role for memorization in Voxy?
Absolutely, and I mean, I think that's one of the things that you and Brainscape have done a phenomenal job at. So yeah, I think I don't often use the word memorization, but I do use, like I said, relive. So, we'll explain once that, J-Lo is now going to be host of American Idol, and we'll allow you to relive that learning opportunity in your target language, and really try to test you that way.
And are users liking this so far? You heard the term 19,000 users that he mentioned a moment ago, and the last I checked, was an article on TechCrunch last week, and it said 15,000 users. So yeah. it's growing fast. How do you see the adoption, and what are some of the barriers or things that are facilitating that adoption?
Yeah, I mean, we're really pleased with the traction that we're getting and with the user growth, and we're trying to create as tight of a community as we can. We've got a great community manager that's in very close contact with not only our sort of top tier users, but really the whole group, and the new cohorts that are coming in, every week. Yeah, I think we have added a couple thousand in just the last week alone. So yeah, I mean, the users are active and are engaged, and we're trying to do our best to keep responding to their needs and to build Voxy around the specific needs of our users. And life skills are a perfect example of that. We were hearing over and over again, please help me with these daily interactions. So after we had our topical model where we were using news content, and it took us about a month and a half to develop life skills. And now the biggest thing we're hearing from our user base is help us with the language that we need to get jobs. So the next life skill that we'll be launching will be things like how do you write a resume, and how do you conduct yourself in a job interview and stuff like that. So yeah, we're trying to stay as close as we can, and we're very grateful for the people who've been giving us this feedback so far.
So how much of this content that's on the web is portable to the iPhone? I hear you just came out with an iPhone app. Haven't had the chance yet to dig through it myself, but can you really teach something like banking skills or resume writing on an iPhone, or is it just a piece of what you have on the web that's accessible by iPhone?
So right now, the iPhone app, which is in the App Store, it was actually, I think, launched the 23rd of December, and it replicates fairly closely the web experience, and it's synchronous in that you're able to anything that you do on the iPhone will be stored for you online, much as I think Brainscape, all your suite of products is. But yeah, it is the full experience. So the life skills are available to you. There's audio, so you're able to actually hear, if you're taking a banking lesson, for example, you're able to actually hear pronunciation. And yeah, and all the news stories are also pushed to the device. We prefetch a lot of it, so the experience is rather quick. So yeah, that's just the beginning, really. Our goal is to make Voxy's web experience and mobile experience obviously seamless, but we want to take advantage of the properties that each of these media offer. So the mobile experience in our next generation will be very, very different, and leverage a lot of the core mobile technology that's inherent in smartphones today.
Well, it sounds like you guys have already been leveraging technologies to push some strong innovations in e-learning and language learning. What's in the future? What's in a couple of years for Voxy, and where is it headed?
Well, we hope to just keep expanding, obviously, our user base and our product to meet the needs of the users. I mean, I think as we sort of just said, as handsets continue to evolve, there's really no limit to what we can do, whether it's in optical character recognition or augmented reality, or there's a lot of different ways I think that we can really help our learners learn from the activities of their daily life.
Well, it'll be exciting to see how it evolves.
Thank you.
If anybody out there is interested in learning more about Voxy, you could check them out at voxy.com or check out their great blog at voxy.com/blog.
Thank you very much, Andy.
Paul Galash, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Look forward to following you guys in the future. Thank you. This is EdTech Insider. I'm Andrew Cohen with Brainscape.